Item number YOS 5278. Object class Keter, previously Euclid. Threat level Danger, previously guarded. Containment procedures.
YOS 5278 is to be kept in a sealed bathroom at all times. Personnel are to remain outside the room and report any behavior coming from it. YOS 5278 must not come into contact with any personnel for any reason. Personnel are required to wear a mask for protection.
This sentence was stricken from the file. Prior to incident, personnel must not be within 5 meters of YOS 5278 at all times. Any signs of personnel acting in an unusual way must be quarantined. The bathroom door and the window must be sealed shut at all costs in order to not cause a breach from YOS 5278. Description: YOS 5278 appears as a human male in African descent. It shows no signs of high intelligence, and its DNA was mutated, but still remains in a humanoid shape. The only change is the behavior of the human, acting like a mischievous child that teases people, and it shows murderous intent. It will constantly excrete flatulence gas that is toxic to humans. This gas seems to possess some lethal effects. It will cause the subject to be mad at YOS 5278, and simply tell it that he's a very bad boy, but the human won't react to this speech, and will get the correct timing to kill the subject with toxicity. Many people placed surveillance cameras in the bathroom, and most of them are worried that YOS 5278, when it gets into close proximity to the cameras, they think when it excreted the anomalous gas, it would infect them, but this doesn't seem to work as it just teases with the cameras, almost if it's teasing the foundation staff if it sees through. Incident: when the guards blocked the bathroom, they got infected by the gas and went inside the bathroom. They both were killed afterwards. As a result, new containment procedures were being used, including reclassifying. Item number YOS 320. Object class Euclid. Containment procedures. All YOS 320 packages are to be stored in a small steel safe at Site 21. Anyone exposed to it must be quarantined for approximately 3 days. Any use of YOS 320 must be approved by Level 3 personnel. Description: YOS 320 are 3 packages of milk chocolate M&Ms. They lack any properties when intact. However, when pieces of YOS 320-1 are outside of the package for 2 minutes, they will disappear and reappear inside the package. When a human subject consumes a single piece of YOS 320-1, no unusual activity will occur. When consuming multiple pieces of YOS 320-1, the effect will cease within 56 minutes. Subject will experience a stomach ache, and will rarely get a temporary illness not yet identified, that lasts within a minute. They will have issues with their digestive system, and will often excrete parts of YOS 320-2. After almost 3 hours, the subject will get an urge to regurgitate the rest of YOS 320-2 infesting the body, and the subject will lose consciousness after this occurs. When the subject wakes up, they will get a minor headache and seem to have trouble with their health. Analysis shows that most of the subjects have a severe loss of blood, and might have been caused by YOS 320-2 consuming most of it. YOS 320-2 is believed to be an amorphous mass of purplish waste matter. It is assumed to be capable of moving on its own accord, and feeds off the blood and possibly tissues of the human host. Once the mass has been removed, either physically or by regurgitation, it will cease all movement, and it is assumed to be terminated. This might be due to the fact that it cannot survive anywhere except for the human body. The pieces of YOS 320-1 after being consumed, simply reappears within the package, and the open part of the package will simply regrow. Addendum 320-1. YOS 320 was found within one of the boxes of the Foundation's Site 21. It was tested on a Class D subject to see any unusual occurrences, and was secured in one of the cells. Item number YOS 2807. Object class Keter. Containment procedures. YOS 2807 seems to be uncontainable by any means, and is constantly manifesting at a high rate when in a certain area. It is to be tracked down and monitored at all times, and must be tracked down immediately after it disappears. No one is to attempt to turn on the lights that YOS 2807 currently resides in temporarily, as it might result in death. It should be closely examined and keep track of its behavior when in a specific area, and personnel should not attempt to physically contain it, as it uses self-defense to free itself. Civilians who have witnessed YOS 2807 must be given Class B amnestics to prevent them from spreading any information about it. Description: YOS 2807 appears to be an unknown source of a Class K manifestation event that only occurs within an area that is completely devoid of light, or partially devoid of light. Witnesses have caught sight of an unknown humanoid entity hiding in the darkness. It cannot be easily seen from any light source, as it prevents any source of light from reaching it, as it will attack the subject attempting to do so, by pinning them to the ground. Subjects will also report it excreting methane gas and feces, which is very toxic to everyone within a 2-mile radius. Despite this, it will not react when a camera is capable of seeing the entity with a light source within it. The entity appears as a nude African American man with long limbs. The subject is incapable of speech, but possesses the behavior of various wildlife, and can only walk on all fours. It also shows low intelligence, and it doesn't show a need to eat. Apparently, every organ in its body is absent, with the exception of the heart. It doesn't seem to impact it in any way. It will remain passive unless the subject attempts to turn on a source of lightning. Addendum 28071. YOS 2807 was discovered in one of the Foundation facilities, within a dark room that is supposed to be a containment chamber later on, but the cell was dark, and they caught a sense of smell, reminiscent of a person who's naked and is secreting a foul smell within. They attempted to turn on the lights, but the presumed attacker attacked one of the researchers and eventually killed the victim. They reported hearing a flatulence noise and possibly defecation. The entity was no longer seen after this, and the researcher's remains were incinerated. Addendum 2807-2. Foundation staff reports that an entity is attacking and killing civilians that tried to turn on the lights to their rooms. They tracked down the entity and attempted to contain it, but it used self-defense and released a huge amount of methane gas for flatulence and defecation, and eventually killed the team with extreme force. Due to this, containment is no longer possible, and the entity is to be tracked down and monitored until further investigation.
Note: I think if we keep him in an area where darkness completely consumes it, it will most likely stay within it, and containment will be effective and there will be no further incidents happening. I say we try to find one. Dr. Smith?
Decisions with Dr. Smith's statements are yet to be made by the 07 Council when YOS 2807's new containment protocol is to be approved. Item number: YOS 2766. Object Class: Euclid, previously safe. Threat Level: Guarded. Containment Procedures: YOS 2766 is to be contained in a 3-meter containment cell, standing on a 2-meter rectangular table. Testing must only be approved by Dr. Only 2 researchers and 1 D-Class are to enter YOS 2766's cell. Instructions are to be noted for the single D-Class. Activation of YOS 2766 must not be triggered when not for testing. Upon a request for the D-Class, they are to cautiously touch YOS 2766 to trigger its effect. After the subject's transformation, they must wear a different size of D-Class uniform. No one is to touch YOS 2766 about 15 to 20 times every 14 hours. Upon touching it about 15 to 20 times, the affected subject is to be terminated after the end of the side effects. After the event of Incident 2766.10, the cell must be fully locked at all times. Description: YOS 2766 resembles a 2-meter tall pink vase. The inside of the object is a pitch-black dark void. Where it got this is currently unknown. Upon putting something inside, the object tends to disappear. The date it was created is unknown. It is assumed to be created in the early 1700s or 1800s. YOS 2766 reacts with physical contact with human subjects. YOS 2766 has smoke within its structure, and can only exit out the mouth if physical contact is made. If a human subject comes into contact with the object, they will experience changes to their physical body. An unknown source of pink smoke will immediately come out of the object and immediately affect the subject. It will change their body shape, either thin, thick, bigger, or muscular, or a change in gender. It cannot be reversed in any way, and will always gain this shape. Exposure 1. Exposure 2. A female D-class, D1071, was sent into the cell. She was asked to touch the surface of YOS 2766. Subject hesitates for a second before touching it. After physical contact was made, a puff of pink smoke comes out the item's mouth hole, and the D-class's breast significantly expands. She was then asked the second time to touch the object. She refused to do this, but was forced to do it. Upon touching it again, a puff of smoke appeared again, and her thighs expanded. The test ended. Addendum 2766.1. Multiple members of D-class personnel were tested with YOS 2766, and their body changed almost immediately, or caused little effect. After the effect went off, they tapped it repeatedly, and one Class D's shape altered heavily. See Incident 2766.10 for details. Incident 2766.10. A test was set with one male Class D, and was warming up to touch it. After the warm-up he touched it almost instantly. After this, instead of pink smoke coming out, black and white smoke exited in the shape of a skull. The object's structure becomes darkened with red cracks forming, and the subject's body altered heavily, as he begins to bleed and his limbs and torso contorting to impossible angles. The test was paused immediately and the subject was terminated. Addendum 2766.10.03. The same female Class D was tested with YOS 2766, while it was emitting smoke from its mouth, and smoke on the ground. Once she touched the object, the smoke disappeared. Then the subject's body changes, her breasts expanded again, ripping off the uniform with them exposed. Then all of a sudden, a large beam of smoke exits and creates a whirlwind. The D-class was no longer seen again. Once she returned, she explained that she was in an Egyptian-type location, and was accompanied by 3 humanoid females, designated as YOS 2766-1. They were clothed in yellowish wraps of paper towels, and they wore a crown with white dresses. They replaced her D-class uniform with a headband and a white dress. They then encountered an unknown entity who touched her. She was then transported to an area with an ancient table and had a baby covered in the white cloth while a single spotlight was shining down. She then sees a strange dark and humanoid creature while the spotlight is shutting off and on. She then quickly took the baby from the creature who is probably attempting to harm the infant. She then comforts the baby and is instantly blasted with a large pink beam, which sends her back to the entity's area. The entity then sends her back to the containment area of YOS 2766 using its abilities. The subject was then removed from the room and site members replaced her ancient clothes with D-class uniform, and the metallic objects were secured by multiple lasers. But the objects were self-transporting themselves back to the subject. Addendum 2766.11. After Site-17 was destroyed by Chaos Insurgency 45, the status of YOS 2766 is currently unknown. Item Number: YOS 310. Object Class: Euclid. Containment Procedures: the area, designated as Containment Area B1, is to be blocked by approaching civilians. Anyone who tries to reside in the area is to be halted and remind them to stay away from the area. Once a week, YOS 310 is to be checked out outside the interior of the area, and any activity shown from YOS 310 is to be reported immediately. No one is to make contact with YOS 310 for more than 15 minutes. The timing must be acquired by test subjects, D-class personnel, and researchers. When the timing reaches its endpoint, personnel are to leave the area no more than 3 minutes. If a subject remains in the interior with YOS 310 for more than 3 minutes, the exterior must be protected at all times until the activation of YOS 310 reaches its end. Personnel are requested to not be within YOS 310's proximity until its activation ends, or personnel are to be terminated when YOS 310's activation becomes strong. Once the activation ends, personnel who survived have to evacuate and must be sent to a mental watchover facility near Containment Area B1, and personnel who didn't survive must have their remains incinerated within a furnace in the mental watchover facility. Description: YOS 310, in appearance, is a presumed humanoid entity made up of gaseous matter. Its appearance appears to be shadowed, and is constantly ejecting some sort of darkened gas that doesn't seem to affect the subject within close proximity. YOS 310 appears to be hostile towards any human subject it comes into contact with. If the subject reaches its target, it will release a huge cloud of black smoke that spreads on a 2-mile radius that is meant to cover up its attack. Due to its darkness, human beings cannot see the attack it's doing to the victim, and on rare occasions, can suffer mild blindness. When the smoke clears, the subject will be inert, and die within 2 minutes. YOS 310 will then enter a dormant state that is timed between 4 to 13 hours. Randomly, YOS 310 is capable of changing its shape and taking the form of any human being, although it is always unaware what human being it is taking the form of. Its most common form is a Caucasian human female, probably 25 years of age, and wears a suit that is mostly worn when going to a beach, colored into a dark shade of blue, and possesses dark brown long hair, sometimes black. YOS 310, when it took the form of the woman, begins acting like a normal human, and will act like one in the beach, specifically Containment Area B1 it currently resides in. If it comes into contact with a human subject, it will try to convince the subject to hang out with it. If successful, it will let the subject hang out with it for more than 15 minutes. After the limit of time is reached, it will change back to its original form, and terminate the subject while releasing a large cloud of black smoke in order to prevent other humans from viewing or protecting the victim within its proximity. YOS 310 will repeat this process by entering a dormant state for 4 to 13 hours, and then take the form of the woman once again until finding another human. When YOS 310 takes this form, it can speak in clear complete sentences, identified as English, in a feminine tone, although it is incapable of speech when in its original form. See Addendum 310-2. YOS 310 has not been observed taking other forms other than a beach woman, almost like it prefers taking the form of a woman, because human males will be easier to control, and females will most likely hang out with it.
Note: it seems that the subject are not trying to deny YOS 310's request. There could be a possibility that the anomaly takes over the brain of the subjects and force them to hang out with it. I would recommend that we not gain contact with YOS 310 constantly, and it must be fed once every 5 days.
Addendum 310-1. YOS 310 was discovered when people mysteriously disappeared in a specific beach. MTF Unit 68 went to investigate, until they found an empty beach with a shadow-type figure inhabiting it. When they saw it, they immediately called the containment team and secured it. They surrounded the beach originally with a barbed wire fence, but was immediately replaced with an airtight steel wall. See Incident 310. Addendum 310-2. Dr. went into the area and was requested to try to talk to YOS 310 and leave within 15 minutes.
Hello YOS 310.
Whoa, where did you get that name?
We don't know your actual name, so we came up with it.
Well, I don't like that. Call me Jessica.
Okay Jessica. I have a few questions for you.
Ask me whatever you like.
We saw you turn into a shadowy figure and we assume that you kill people, is that true?
I don't know what you're talking about, sweetie.
Giggles softly.
I just greet them with a hug, that's all.
But when the smoke cleared, the person was torn to bits, and didn't seem to show any movement.
I guess you can say I got a little carried away.
Giggles softly again.
I guess I have anger problems.
Yeah, I guess you can say that, but you do seem hostile when you approach them, but I won't question it any further.
I just need to check my emotions.
Well, I got to go now. Thanks for bringing me here.
Alright, bye.
Closing statement. Dr. returned back to the exterior without incident, and managed to get out in 2 minutes and 35 seconds. It seems that YOS 310 was grateful that it allowed Dr. to leave, and was not controlling him when they communicated. Incident 310. AD Class 8705 went in the area and interacted with YOS 310 for more than 15 minutes. The subject then changed its form and attacked the D class. The large cloud of black smoke covered everything within a 2-mile radius. This smoke caused mild blindness to personnel nearby, and most of the civilians nearby in a close city. After the D class was terminated, the fence was replaced with an airtight steel wall that surrounds the beach to hopefully block the smoke from spreading, except for the back of the beach that reaches the ocean. It is unknown if the smoke affects marine animals as well. Addendum 310-3. Dr. Derek requested that YOS 310 will need to interact with other passive YOS anomalies, like YOS 1163, YOS 432, YOS 1442, and YOS 2097, but this was denied.